Welcome to Aspire to Lead, where we empower educators and school leaders to grow, inspire, and thrive. I'm your host, Joshua Stamper, author, speaker, and leadership coach, bringing you conversations that spark transformation, challenge the status quo in education, and equip you to make a lasting impact on your campus or in your district. For more information and resources, visit joshstamper.com as we're looking to ascend to new leadership heights together. All right, welcome back, Aspire Leaders. I am so overjoyed. I don't even have words because the gentleman that's on the screen with me is someone I've been connected with and had a pleasure of working with in many different facets. And he's working with educators all over the country, but not just educators, but businesses too. And I'm excited to learn more about his story, his journey. And with that, Brad, thank you so much for joining Aspire to Lead.
Hey, Josh, thanks for asking me. I'm thrilled to be on here and looking forward to having a great conversation with you and connecting with all the people watching this when it comes out. So thanks for having me.
Well, there's some exciting news that we got to drop here on this episode is that you got a brand new book coming out called Racing the Future here in just a little bit in September. We're going to definitely talk about that resource, but I also know you're just full of information and wisdom. And so I can't wait to jump into that. But before we do that, Brad, would you share a little bit about just your educational leadership journey?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I went back to school later in life and became a classroom teacher. My first life was just in business and sales, and I have a degree in psychology and wasn't real sure what to do. Discovered education, went back to school, got my teaching certification, became a classroom teacher. I did that for 15 years, third grade. It was awesome. And then I never expected to leave the classroom. I mean, I just reinvested in myself to go into education, spent 15 years, and then as we'll talk about in this conversation, I'm sure, something just absolutely changed. And within probably less than 2 years of this catalyst and variable coming into my life, my entire life changed. And so I ended up leaving the classroom, but not education. I left the classroom in 2014, but I've still been in education ever since. So I call myself an educator still, not a classroom teacher. But man, I love what I do. And that was part of the reason why I ended up taking the next step, because my son, who was 16 at the time, had some great words of wisdom, which I'll share later in the conversation.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, let's talk about you as a teacher, because I know you had a very interesting role and working with your third graders. I know sometimes people are like, third grade, like, what are you really going to do with them as far as technology? And I know you had kind of a different system as far as the discovery with them. I'm curious what those lesson designs look like for your students to discover rather than just consuming that information.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so I'll set the stage. So I was already teaching 10 years. When this happened, I was 10 years in as a teacher. Like all teachers, going back right now in a week, 2 weeks ago, I know school is back in session in a lot of places in the country. I was there in my classroom 10 years in, and I was just having some epiphanies and realizations that my 8-year-olds coming in were not even born when I started teaching. And so for me, it was just 10 years, but for them, it was an entire lifetime. And so I just had an epiphany about, my students were different, then than they were, now than they were 10 years ago. But also what happened at that time, and teachers who are watching this know about the Scholastic catalog, book order catalog. This was back, I'll say probably 2011, maybe 2010, 2011. And I had so many points from 10 years that I'd never used them. I got a couple library catalogs, some books for my classroom. But I saw something called the iPad. This was this brand new thing. It was, smartphones were brand new. And it was just like a giant smartphone that didn't have a phone. So I wasn't really sure, but I knew I wanted to check it out. So I got one. I ordered it. It was 30,000 points with my Scholastic catalog. And it came, and I didn't know what to do with it. It came in, had this big glass interface, touch screen. Think about that. It's all common now, tablets, everything. But then it was just like, I don't know. I was looking at it. I wasn't real sure. There wasn't a lot of software programs and apps at the time, but I started using it. I created a digital classroom. I used it for a filing system, notes. And the first thing I really found success was recording information from my students, capturing student work, making notes, really just moving into digital. And I used it with my parents at parent-teacher conference. And boy, it was great. I was like, wow, this was a big game changer. But the next year, the iPad 2 came out and had a phone camera on it. And that was like, I still didn't know how it was going to change, but I'm like, wow, that's great. I want it. So I got one. And that's when everything really changed, because I discovered a new technology called augmented reality, and people are more familiar with it now than they were in 2012, where you scan anything, it's image recognition software, you see something and digital information comes up. Well, I was like, hey, this is cool. I'm going to try to find something with it. And at that time, there was nothing for education. The most popular thing I found was a digital basketball. You would shoot baskets into your garbage can. But through a lot of research and discovery, I found an architecture design where I could build a house. I found something from NASA where I could explore a rover. And then the third thing I found was through the University of Illinois Medical School, I found something for their medical students where you could have a human body and you could explore all the systems. Now, all these were way advanced for third grade, but that didn't matter at the time. I just wanted to explore the technology. And I'll tell you, Josh, when I did that, I brought this technology into my classroom in those three examples, and I just used them intermittently to get student feedback and see. Well, I'll tell you, after 10 years, and a lot of teachers know this, like, I don't want to say I was jaded, but every few years something would come. I'd have a different acronym. Administration would be saying, this is new for this year, we're going to use this, and things come and go. But at that point, 10 years in, what I saw with my students firsthand, the engagement that I saw, I was like, okay, I've never seen anything like it. So I'll tell you, what I did is I started leveraging that engagement piece, and people can go back and look at, I ended up having a podcast and a blog at the time. I realized that leveraging that power from technology was huge. And so I wrote lesson plans around engagement. So I would hook students with this technology, and then I could teach them pretty much anything I wanted, because if the hook was strong enough, I weaved everything else in. I'd get reluctant writers to write, and just, there's so many stories. There are, so many stories. That's when everything changed. And I started writing about it. Again, classroom teacher in the walls of my room. And somebody's like, so I started writing a blog, and then somebody said, hey, will you come to a conference and speak? I'm like, okay, I have no idea what that even means. I'd never even been to a conference. I mean, other than my district PD stuff. I was like, sure. And like, it was like McCall Mobile, which is Michigan's, like, just a small regional one. I said, what do you want me to talk about? They said, just talk about what you do in your classroom. I'm like, well, that's easy. I can do that because I love it. So I had an hour session in the morning. My room was full. It was a small room. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It was like a room for like 20 people, but it was like 40 people. It was full, standing room. And so I just started talking about what I was doing in the classroom, and then everything changed. I ended up getting a grant to get 5 iPads, which, was a lot at the time. So I had my classroom, I did a digital and an analog classroom in sequence in parallel. So I had an analog lesson plan, a digital lesson plan. I just had the students swap. And so I did weekly, and then everything just kind of went nuts. It really went nuts because I realized I was passionate about sharing what was going on, because I saw the changes in my kids. I'm like, hey, you don't have to adopt this, but you can't tell me what I saw in my classroom that I didn't see it, because I literally saw students who were, third grade boy, wasn't writing a thing. He'd write 2 sentences and it was stuck, couldn't do anything. But opening the door, next thing you know, he's writing a page and a half. Now, was it great writing? No, but I had a lot more I could work with. You know what I mean? I also had a student who was a selected mute. Like, he just was. He is in third grade. This was his 4th year in organized school, and doesn't talk. He talks at home. And through this technology, everything on his own time, but with a lot of pieces in place, he started talking. It surprised to me. That was never the design, but it happened. And so I have so many of those stories. And so I because I truly believe and still believe in the power that we as teachers have by leveraging things in our classroom. And it can be a handful of things. It doesn't have to be one, but once we see that the power of engagement and leveraging something that we have, you can really make a huge impact. And that changed my life. And I've been on that journey, since 2014, when I officially left the classroom to become a worldwide educator. I've been working in classrooms, districts, and businesses since. And I'll just pause there, because as you tell, I've been on my soapbox, man, and it's incredible.
I love it. That's why I love talking with you, Brad. And so let's talk about kind of some emerging technology, because you're what you just said is you've been supporting schools and school districts for a long time, and technology has really reshaped education as a whole. And some of that is due to the pandemic and just the reliance that was upon technology, which really assisted as we were really trying to navigate a different water at that time. So just as far as folks are looking at tools and maybe some innovative practices within the schools and the classrooms, what are some of the tools that you really think are transforming learning and will do so for the next 3 to 5 years as technology has drastically changed, even just in the last 5 years ourselves with AI and some of these other tools?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I know we were talking before we even went on air, and you said something that is extremely accurate, that technology is evolving faster now than it ever has. And that's very true. So, one of our, I don't want to call it a struggle, but one of our things that we as an education system are working to combat is staying up with AI, different things. And that's no easy task. It really isn't. It started, 12, 14 years ago as augmented reality, then virtual reality, and then, the metaverse and everything like that, and digital twins. And now with AI, it's moving extremely fast. And so, just understanding that, students are probably ahead of us. I mean, they just are. I mean, and that's, that was true 10 years ago, a lot of times, but it's really accurate now. I mean, it really is. So, just one is taking a step back and breathing and just being like, okay, like, I don't need to know everything. I just need to know. I need to be informed and educated. And that's a big part of it is, the education. There's a lot of great people doing incredible professional development and working with schools. I work with a ton of districts and schools. And again, my lens comes from, not only, it's not just one-offs, understanding like, hey, this is a great tool, because I can send people to my resource page, and I'm happy to, where they can go get 10 good tools in every category, which is great. But that's just the beginning, is understanding a tool and its context. After that is like, not only the application, but what is the bigger, like most of us as teachers were 1 year with a group, through a 12, 13 year sequence. It's like, what is our role? Like me as a third grade teacher, what is the global view of my impact? What I'm doing at third grade is going to have sixth grade, seventh grade, ninth grade, and so on, no matter where you are. And it's really, to me, it's about skill acquisition and understanding what's coming in the future workforce. Like the workforce that is here now, the jobs, there's jobs now that didn't exist 5 years ago. There's jobs that are going to be here in 5 years or 2 years that didn't exist, and they'll just keep evolving. So the trick is not training people for these specific jobs, but it's looking at broad skill acquisition. And that's part of where my book came from. So, I mean, I didn't expect to go here, but I'll give you just a funny story. Is when I was just working with districts and stuff, I realized, I said, okay, so one of the things I want to do is I want to give teachers context about skill acquisition. Like, look, I grew up with elementary, as a teacher. I mean, working with students, like, so keyboarding and spelling and typing, was a skill that was always big. Cursive writing, like these are things that like transcend whatever your job is. If you can type and have keyboarding, doesn't matter what your job is, that's a great skill to have. So I was thinking, what are some of these skills that are like going to be very good no matter what job they're going into? And what I found out through tons of research, I've got a giant spreadsheet that I created. I went category wise, job wise, and then I started looking in and writing about all the skills that made sense. And then I grouped them together like, oh, okay. So that's part of where the book came from. So it's going to be a toolkit for teachers. Like if you see students who show these, like we can go into a classroom and we know, oh, this group of kids are great at Minecraft. This group of kids are great at crafts, arts and crafts. These students are great at drawing. These students are great at communication, design, whatever that might be. And so I reversed it. I was like, oh, if we see students with these skills and passions, what are some things that they could maybe go into? Then it ended up being like, okay, I had this whole giant spreadsheet. It's like, okay, so now like, how do I identify students? But also like, okay, so now what it really boiled down to was, here's a bunch of incredible jobs, very broad jobs that are here and going to continue to expand and grow in the next decade. Here's a handful, 7, 8 skills. Like these 4 are great if you're interested in this grouping. These 3 to 5 are great for this grouping. And so I look at the next level of, applying technology and give it more context of, okay, so, just like we say, okay, keyboarding is great for everybody. As students get older, if they're in high school, taking a class on medical terminology is going to be great if they're going into medicine as a whole. It doesn't matter if they're going to be a PT, if they're going to be a nurse practitioner, a doctor, cardiac surgeon, whatever that is. So now, I have just through, weird, passionate research have found a lot of these skills that we can work on acquiring. So then what I did is it's like, okay, so this group, here are 10 tools that help you with this. Here are a bunch of websites that help you with this. And what that did is, working with teachers, it gave them a lot of context and a lot of comfort that, okay, like Brad's got a lot of big picture for me. So now I can kind of just go down. It's not a handbook like it was originally designed to be, but it's like a bunch of context. It's like, okay, so now I can manage whether it's AI and autonomous robots or, somebody going into a digital, forensic digital specialist, different things. Again, so it's really looking at what's here technology wise. AI is, taking over. It's evolving extremely fast. Autonomous robots, vehicles, design, UX, UI, all that stuff. So the book that we'll end up talking about later came out of all this research and passion that I love about trying to assist teachers in the education system as a whole. Much farther than most books have gone globally, because I'm more of a got to see the forest through the trees kind of guy.
I mean, we are in a digital age, and I know there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear from some of the teachers because, like you said, the students have a vast knowledge of all of the new technology that's coming out, especially with AI, and some folks feel like I'm just on the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that I need to know to stay in line with what's going on. And, also I think educators are trying to figure out what's their role now in education as we have this booming technology. I swear every other day, I feel like another AI app is telling me that they've enhanced it and there's all these new features and it can do so much more. And, all the research and stuff is showing just how smart AI is getting in such a rapid pace. And so, Brad, let's talk more about your book and the future. Sure. All right. So your beautiful book, Racing the Future, is coming out very, very soon. And I want everyone to grab a copy. As far as the future, the workforce, let's maybe dive into that topic a little bit more because I can geek out pretty good with you on this. I remember standing up in front of my staff and talking through this as far as like the skills that our students need to possess and things that we need to kind of prioritize in the classroom because there were many jobs at that time coming out that had never existed before. And one of the examples I used was a drone pilot. There were thousands of jobs. Thousands of jobs on the internet that people could literally grab, and it was a great pay, but we didn't really have anyone that was ready to get into that job and that specific workforce. And for me growing up, that didn't exist. That was a new job. So like, what are some of the skills that you teach? And maybe this is in the book too, as far as preparing our kids for a future that we can't even imagine.
Yeah, no, it's great that you use that example because a couple different things come up with that. There were, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, it was before, so it was pre-COVID, so sure. 18 or 19, I used the drone pilot as an example.
Yeah.
And, talking about that. And even that one has evolved so much. I work with a digital twin company out of Florida. What that is, if people who are watching not familiar with digital twin, it's just what it sounds like. It's making a digital copy of anything that exists in the real world. And that can be a pair of shoes that you try on online, pair of glasses. You've probably used them and seen them and tried them on. Didn't know that was a digital twin. It can be everything from a piece of machinery, a car, anything automotive industry, an entire plant. But the funny thing is, I bring that up is because the company I do a lot of work with in Florida is they do huge scale. They do land surveys. They do building and mapping. Well, they have drone pilots. They have 4 drone pilots on staff. And all 4 drone pilots are actually like, this isn't, there's so people who don't know, there are different levels of actually being certified because there are times when you need to be FAA certified. And that's what all of their drone pilots are FAA certified, meaning that they can go into airspace and they have identification tags and all that stuff where they are working. But that's a great example of jobs that didn't exist and skills. So I break this up into hard skills and soft skills. Hard skills like, typing and different things like that. But if you really go and again, part of the reason the book came out is because I immediately found myself across the table from executives in business, C-level executives, managers, directors. And I'm like, hey, I've got a unique opportunity. I have a lens of a teacher. I'm going to start asking things. What are we doing right? What's needed? From an education system as a whole. And start asking about what are you looking for when you want to hire somebody? Because at the time, I'll just give a little context. I was helping with onboarding. So I was using technology to help teach people how to operate heavy equipment, how to manage, working from heights on, scaffolds, skyscrapers. So I found myself having these conversations. So I started asking questions like, what are you looking for in a candidate? What is something that is really important? And I'll tell you, this came up more times than not. And it might be cliche, but it's grounded in my research. It's in the book. There are a lot of great hard skills that I have outlined in the book. And those are more clearly identified in groupings of areas of work. But soft skills transcend. And I'll just give you some examples, things that came up over and over and over again. Communication. You need to be able to communicate. Now, look, we live in a time where our students are a lot more comfortable, communicating on a phone and stuff like that. Now, they've got a lot of that down. Like they're comfortable getting back to you right away, emails and stuff. But there's also email etiquette. And you'll see, go on LinkedIn, you can see a lot of the parody accounts and spoofs are, a Gen X or a Gen Z, a millennial, a Gen Z, or, everything, like how they respond to emails, emojis, conversations, meetings, all that. But what transcends every generation is, being able to communicate. And that's one of the biggest things, and that's also like, being able to look somebody in the eye, shake their hand, stand up in an interview, thank them for their time. Collaboration was huge because it's so funny. This model came out early on in my research that when you're in a workplace, they're all about like talking to other people, getting help from other people, getting help from a teammate, asking them for help. Like in school, we're like, no, you don't do that. You don't ask somebody that. But now that really has changed. There's a lot more communication, collaboration in groups and projects. And like, okay, if you don't know, ask somebody. And if they can teach you, that's great. So communication, collaboration, teamwork, those three, and an open mind. Now, okay, so there's 5. Open mind and open to learning, being a good learner. Because look, just anybody watching this and with us right now can just think about, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago before COVID. Just think about all of that. Things change rapidly, and that's going to continue to happen. Just we have to evolve. And so, collaboration, communication, teamwork, good learner, open to learning, all of those are huge soft skills that are just going to make you more employable. And, my principal that hired me, I love one thing he said to me. He said, look, I hire good people. If you're not good at language arts when you come in, I can send you to professional development. I can send you to training. He goes, but if I'm looking at hiring you and you're a jerk, he used a different word, I can't do anything about that. That's who you are.
Oh, totally.
You know what I'm talking about. So I bring that up because, there are hard skills that students can acquire based on certain job areas. And then there's soft skills that transcend all areas. And it might seem cliche, but in the book, I do a whole chapter and section on jobs. I got it from one of my keynotes. The keynote's written, my book is written like a keynote. So when you read the book, it sounds like I'm talking with you. I'm on stage or you're listening to me. And that's how I wrote it. And it's an extension of all my work. And so what I do is I have a section in my keynotes, 5 jobs you didn't even know exist. And it's a huge hit. Like people love it. And so there's a huge chapter in the book, and it's about 10 or 12 that I identify. And I use references like Abby Shuto from NCIS or, Ernie from NCIS Hawaii. That's obviously a show we like to watch, my wife and I. And I talk about their job and, so people can identify with it. And then like skills and different things you can do, courses you can take, programs and software that you can reference to your students. I've got a whole list in there. It'll continue to evolve about, I have different sections of what you're trying to accomplish, what you want to get. Here are 5 recommended tools or apps, and all that. So hard skills, soft skills. Hard skills are specific, industry job specific, soft skills transcend. And then just, the book is all about helping an educator, a parent, administrator, and even a student. I mean, anybody could open this book and you don't have to read it front to back. It's written all in chapters as far as what technologies. You can go to the job section first. You can go to AI first. You can go to digital twins, whatever. All around the 9 categories of Industry 4.0 is what you'll see. Most people are not familiar with that language. That's why I'm promoting that language, because we're in the 4th major revolution in how we do business worldwide. Industrial Revolution was 1. Henry Ford, automation, electricity was 2. Connecting a computer to a machine in the mid 80s was number 3. And now we're in number 4, which 4 just now has like 9 systems. AI, autonomous vehicles are one of them. Augmented reality is another one. Cybersecurity is another one. System integration, the cloud is another one. So what I do is I take time to help people understand what those are. I had a nice Marley Strawn. She runs an AI company in education, scholar. It's great. She just did a review of my book, and I was very honored with what she said. And the reason why I'm sharing is because what she said, Brad shares all this information in an easy, consumable way that, like, okay, that's great. Like, I don't have to have a tech degree. I don't have to be scared about this. It's very simple explanation and gives you context, where next time you hear Industry 4.0 or one of these 9 categories, you're like, okay, I know what that means at least. And then I go down and give you context as an educator or a parent or administrator.
Yeah, that's what I love about just the topic, but also the way that you're explaining it, Brad, is just sometimes it can feel overwhelming and there's just so much information out there. So I'm so glad that you have this resource coming out so soon here in September. Racing the Future is the book. I want to make sure everyone, has this link. So once it comes out, Brad, I'll be sharing it personally on my social media. So if you're following me, and I'll go back into the episode and make sure I put the link in the show notes and on my website at joshstamper.com. But I knew this was going to happen, Brad. I was going to look up and realize that we have run out of time. And for folks that don't know this, every time I talk with Brad, I swear this happens. It's like I look up and an hour has passed or 2 hours has passed because it's so easy to talk with you. And I just love learning from your experience and all the knowledge that you possess. So with that, Brad, I have 2 questions and then we'll close this down. As far as one, I would love for you to share an actionable item for our listeners. And I do this with all my guests. So if there's something that they can do today, tomorrow, next week to enhance their leadership journey, what would you recommend? And maybe we can even have kind of a technology or something, with your book, Racing the Future, maybe it has that lens to it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So, being in the classroom for 15 years and having this lens for the last 10, one thing that continues to come back, whether I was in a classroom teaching, I was giving professional development, or what I'm doing now, is, it's small steps. It's really, first I say is reflect. You were talking about, taking care of yourself and mental health. And look, when I was in the classroom, I feel I was probably the least healthy. I probably don't feel like I looked too unhealthy, but I know, like, it's easy to get caught up in it because it's being an educator is a demanding job, whether you're in the classroom, my wife's a principal, whether, in leadership in another way, it's a demanding job, and we're all in it because we're passionate. We love what we do. We didn't go in for the money, obviously. So what I'd say is an action item. One is take a step back and be clear about, like, just come up with one thing. Like, really, what is that one thing? Like, when if I apply it to technology, it's like, okay, I want to understand an AI tool better. Okay, there are a lot of great ones, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, whatever. There's a lot of great ones. Just pick one. Talk to somebody get a recommendation. And just get in the sandbox, just play with it, and then ask questions. Twitter, as you know, some of us have been around it a long time. It was the best professional development, 15 years ago. I mean, it really was.
It really was.
Go and ask people, hey, recommendations, all that. So my first thing would be just take a step back, get clear about what is it. Don't try to take on too much. Like, don't try to be like, I want to incorporate this, in 2 months with all my kids excelling. Okay, well, that's a big task. But just what is it? Do you want to understand something that, like, I heard my kids reference this? Then just go take a look. Or I want to get better with an AI tool, or I want to implement, I've heard people talking about this program, Canva, or whatever it might be. Just go start learning about it and take one step at a time. Your journey will continue to evolve. When you're looking at your lesson plans and you're planning your day and your week and you're carrying it out, you don't have the luxury of time. We don't. Things are rarely taken off an educator's plate, whether they're in the front office or in the classroom. And we all know that. So small steps, just, being thoughtful about what is reasonable that I want to check into and accomplish. And don't be too hard on yourself. Just know that we're all on this journey, and just take one step at a time. That's my biggest, recommendation moving forward is just be smart about it, and just don't beat yourself up. Don't try too much. There's a lot out there. You can get overwhelmed in a heartbeat.
For sure. It'll feel like you're trying to drink from a fire hose. So
absolutely. Yeah. And it's a big fire hose right now. So, yeah,
it really is. Right. So don't overwhelm yourself, because I know that will just come with frustration and really wanting to just quit overall. And so I think what Brad's saying is wonderful. So take him up on that. And then, Brad, I want folks to connect with you, because I know you had mentioned that you do keynotes. I know you serve schools and school districts all over the country. So there's a lot more that you assist with. So if they're trying to get in contact with you or follow you on social media, where would you direct them?
Yeah, so they can, up here on the screen is my Twitter handle. That's a great place. You can just message me. You can also get connected with me on LinkedIn, through my website, bradwaid.com. And I just share this. If you're out here watching and you're wondering if you've got, I do a lot of welcome back days. They're already for this year, but for next year, do a lot of PD one-offs and year long, do workshops. And it's really all around, the context is all around empowering the teachers to feel like, okay, I've got a handle now. Brad helped. Whether it's AI, any other tools, different things, working with students, Industry 4.0 programs, workshops, all of that. Happy to have a conversation. Just reach out. If you have a question, let's set up time to chat. And it's really easy to get a hold of me. So a good place is on Twitter, X, at Tech Brad Waid, or just Google search me. You can find me a lot of different ways. It's easy.
For sure. I love it. And we'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes for folks to, have that as an easy access to Brad. But Brad is great about getting back to folks, answering questions, being a resource for folks. So if you have a question about anything that's being said, or you're just looking for, a way to enhance your classroom, Brad's the guy to go to. And so we'll make sure that that's in there. And then, of course, check out his brand new book coming out soon, Racing the Future. And that's written with our good friend, Darren Peppard. So for those who consumed the episode a couple of weeks ago, Darren very well. And so I'm so happy that you guys are working together for this beautiful resource. And then, man, Brad, I can't sing your praises enough. I just think the world of you. I'm just so thankful to not only be connected with you, but then also to have you come onto the podcast to talk about this really important topic in education. As we know, things are brand new for a lot of folks and we're navigating new waters. So with that, Brad, thank you so much for being on Inspire to Lead.
Yeah, Josh, thank you so much for having me. And thanks to everyone watching. I really appreciate it. And I value what you do every day. It's not easy. And you've got my support and honor. And I love what everybody does. So if you have just any questions, reach out anytime. Again, Josh, you're not wrong. Every time we chat, time just flies. We have so many offline conversations that we're an hour and a half in. It's like, holy cow. So thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Well, we'll have to have you back on the show, and we'll dive in deeper, as I have a lot more questions in my head that we weren't able to get to today, but maybe we can do that for round 2.
That sounds great. Thanks again for having me. And thanks everyone for watching. I appreciate it.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.